Okay, good afternoon. It is February 11th, 2025, and this is our Governance and Priorities Committee meeting, and I'll call the meeting to order at 1 p.m. Moving on to the adoption of the agenda. Has anyone got anything they needed to add to the agenda today? Deputy Mayor Shippold.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I also move the agenda as presented.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Any discussion? All those in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to adoption of the previous minutes. Has everyone had a chance to look at the previous minutes, and is there any errors or omissions or anything that needs to be modified? If not, Councillor Musker.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I'll make the motion that we accept the Governance Priorities Committee meeting minutes of January 14th as presented.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Any discussion on that particular motion? Call that to a vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. And we'll move on to, there's no delegation, so move right on to 6.1, remuneration policy discussion. And Mr. Kraus?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Acting Mayor. So previously in a GPC meeting, Council reviewed the remuneration policy on the for the purpose of clarity of what's honorarium per diem or public relations. Council has asked us to come back with basically a worksheet to go through the different scenarios and just identify those items which would be honorarium or per diem or public relations. So in your package today, there is an attachment of that kind of worksheet. So I guess our ask of council today is just to go through that worksheet and just identify, and then from there, administration would take that back and revise the policy so there's clarity in the policy, which would come back to our next GPC meeting.
Okay. Okay, so it is up on the big screen if you don't have it on your computer already. So we just go line by line in each one?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
some are pretty much a
Pretty
give me,
s- yeah.
because it's already established well in the policy, but
Yes.
there'd be others. There was some discussion, and then administration is also asking if we did not list something that council thinks of, that we can add it and put it onto the.
Okay, so I guess the first ones are the council and GPC meetings. Currently, that's a per diem expense. Do we want to keep it as that, or do we want to add that amount into the honorarium? Or just want to keep it status quo? Councillor Hutchinson.
Thanks. I feel all of these on this page should stay at per diem, right?
Councillor Caparo.
Thank you. I was actually thinking the same thing. I agree with Councillor Hutchinson on that.
Okay. Everyone's okay with that? Okay. Okay, then we can move on to,
Acting Mayor, just I guess thinking about this chart, what comes to my mind. So council is also, asked to have meetings with school boards. So if that's a per diem or honorarium, council's also asked for meetings with the MLA and First Nations as outside of regular council meetings. So does council want that under the per diem or honorarium? So it's just, so when we do the policy, there's clarity on those types of meetings.
I believe they should be. Anytime we're meeting with the school board or another level of government, I definitely think that should be a per diem. I'm not sure what the rest of council thinks on that. Councillor Musker?
So would that include all of council has to be involved in those meetings, or could it be one-on-ones with the MLA?
I think for this page, it's when all of council's invited to meet with the MLA or whatever. I think there's separate type of meetings where the acting mayor would meet with the MLA on, specific issues or something.
Okay.
But I think we're looking at all of council on this page.
Okay, very good. Thanks.
I'm envisioning things like the Wildrose School Division meeting we have coming, or potentially the Red Deer Polytechnique, things like that.
What do you mean by Red Deer Polytech?
That'll be coming in a future
Oh,
future
okay.
council meeting. Sorry, probably should have picked something a little more easy. But, you know, things like that. Counselor Musker.
So should we get the things on the list that CEO Crows has recommended?
Again, it's just a guideline.
So what are we doing exactly here today then?
So I did add it to the list. I
You
guess.
have it written
Yes,
down?
so,
Okay.
and when we do draft the policy, we'll include that in there, just so we
Okay.
have a clear policy.
Thank you.
So,
Okay, so we're good with the first page then, correct? Okay, so we can move on to the second page then. And these are more committees, which currently all of these committees are per diems. Counselor Hutchinson, or Counselor Caprero.
Thank you. For myself, I feel like committees should also stay at the per diem, like they have been, keep it as status quo.
Deputy Mayor Shippold.
I'd like to have a discussion about subcommittees and what that means. Because what is a subcommittee? What represents a subcommittee? So I sit on a committee and then all of a sudden there's a subcommittee formed, or two subcommittees formed. I sit on both of those. Does that allow me then to request a per diem for all those or not? Let's talk about the one we went out to the Pine Hills Golf Course on, the Unstoppable Conversations one. That one is an ongoing thing. Would that be considered a subcommittee by participating in those, or where does that come into all this? I just don't know what subcommittees could be a large amount of meetings. So and I guess if it's okay if a counselor has control, but if we have counselors who are wanting to attend everything for different reasons to generate revenue, then is that for the right purpose? So I guess I have a concern about what subcommittees is. Not that this council would, but in the future, if we're doing it, we should do it looking at the future.
Mr. Kraus, you can answer that. and then
Yeah.
we'll go to Counselor
Okay,
Hutchinson.
I think for this page, what administration is thinking of a subcommittee, of a committee that is a counselor's appointed to by council. The Unstoppable Conversations, I think, would be more on the next page, where that's more of a workshop. So on this page, I think what administration was just thinking, there's a formal committee, counselors on that committee creates subcommittees, which a counselor may be on.
I think a good example of that would be, I'm the CAPE representative for CAPE, but I also sit on the Logistics and Transportation Committee, which is a subcommittee of CAPE that is discussing the transportation corridor out west. Or Parkland Regional Library, where you sit on the library board, but I also sit on the executive committee as well. So that's technically a subcommittee of the Parkland Regional Library Board.
But not, those aren't appointed by council.
The committee is appointed by council.
The subcommittee is not, though.
The subcommittee is not, but I believe I did bring those to council at some point. Ms. Breeze?
So, acting mayor to Councilor Shipple, there was a resolution made by council when 3 members of this council asked to put an application to represent those subcommittees. So a resolution was made from council. So that's why I've added that third column, because that could be, instead of like having all these subcommittees, it being brought to council, like Councillor Hutchinson and acting mayor did at that time, and council was fully aware of it, and they said, yeah, go ahead, apply for that, great, we know about it. So again, that's why that third column's been put up there, because that might be a way for council to know about the extra subcommittees.
I would suggest then that we do have that as a resolution from council required for subcommittees. And I just throw that out there, or else you could have a runaway.
Mhm.
Not with this council, but you never know what we have for a future council.
Yeah. Sorry, Counselor Hutchinson.
Yeah, I was going to use the example of the Rocky Learning Council and being a member with the CIC committee. and there was a resolution from Rocky Learning Council to have me on that board, or on that committee. But I do think that, if it was a resolution from council, that would cover, you know, if council feels that maybe that, you know, if it was a fundraising subcommittee for Rocky Learning Council, well, is that, looking at it that way, is that something that's gonna bring a benefit to the entire community and fulfill what we do as, well, what we do for our job?
So what I'm hearing is we're talking for subcommittees of our regular committees, that if we have council resolution, then it's good to go. Okay. Okay, any other comments on this particular page, or can we move on to the next page? Okay, so let's move on to the next page, which is workshops. So, I mean, just looking at, you know, strategic planning, service level, emerging trends, orientation, I mean, those are already per diem, or I believe they're already what we're doing as far as per diems. Civic workshops, what do we classify as a civic workshop?
I think that we had like the unstoppable conversations in mind, where it could be a community type of workshop to attend. So I don't think they happen often. So unstoppable conversations came up, you know, so our policy isn't clear on it now. So just how does council want to handle that in the future? Other events come up.
Councillor Hutchinson.
I wouldn't think, I mean, to me, the Unstoppable is, I know it's a bigger regional type workshop, but it really is focused on individual growth and how to keep moving. But I would think something like a tourism forum being something that would be a per diem, because it does add benefit to have council at those type of workshops. I don't know, do we need to list individual ones, or?
Or council can just kind of do a classification of those type of things and then require a resolution from council.
Okay.
Right.
So we can kind of treat that like we did with the subcommittees. Okay. Is that clear for administration then? Okay. So anything more on the workshop page that we need to discuss, or can we move on to Councillor Hutchinson?
Just kind of a thought with emerging trends. How do we deal with it? Like this year, we're all doing that together via Zoom. What about, I mean, if one wanted to go in person and the rest were doing it, so would that need a resolution under emerging trends as well?
Deputy Mayor Schipel.
I would think yes, regardless whether you go in person and attend a location and/or attend it here. Either way, it would be that we agree as a council that we should participate in that event. And then you get reimbursed accordingly, but it would have to be via motion of council to allow that to happen.
I agree with that, and there's different advantages to attending virtually and different advantages to attending in person, so that, you know, that will change from year to year. Okay, so we can move on to the conference page. Okay, so conferences. The Deputy Mayor Schipel.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I think same as the page prior, we would do the same thing where it would be on a per diem with approval of council.
Councillor Hutchinson.
Just, what is admin's thoughts when they put other conferences not directly related to a committee?
So that would be like the recycling conference. Like we don't have a committee specific to, recycling or organics, but we attend that conference.
And that would be similar with the Alberta Parks and Rec Conference as well.
Our plan with that.
ARPA, yeah. What about conferences that are related to a committee? For example, I'll use the ASHA conference. I'm not attending this year, but because I'm not getting paid through town, would town cover my registration at ASHA if I chose to go?
Would that fall under something like a RCA conference where it comes out of your training budget?
Alberta Senior Housing,
Association?
there's something else in there, association, yeah. So it's the governing committee group of,
But
That-
that sounds like it directly relates to one of the committees you're on, though.
It-
You're on
it
the
does.
Senior housing.
but what I'm saying is I don't get paid through the town for my Rocky Senior Housing. I get paid my honorarium from Rocky Senior Housing.
So you're saying would the town cover the extra expense?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they would if it was any other conference that was under a committee that is relative to that conference. So I don't see what the difference on this one be.
Okay.
I guess we don't have that listed on this list, though, like conferences related to a committee.
Because
So
I
I-
think right now, yeah, that he's correct on that, it's not on there, because it's right in our policy right now, so.
So just clarification, Councillor Hutchinson, you're talking about a conference and not the per diem? Or is that, because I know had mentioned that in past discussions.
Well, yeah, that example, I know the Rocky Senior Housing will send the director as well as one other member. I haven't inquired as to, I think it's just the conference costs that are being paid. I don't think they're getting a per diem to go to those conferences. So it would be, I don't know how to deal with it. It's a tough one because I'm not getting paid through the town for those meetings. Or just a case by case again, bring it before council.
So
Deputy
can you
Mayor.
relate to how it happens today versus how it could happen?
What do you mean?
So today you go to one of these conferences, you get paid your per diem through another organization? Or your rooms, all that kind of stuff? How does that happen?
So if I was to go to the ASHA conference, the rooms and the registration would be paid. I think mileage possibly, but they always try and carpool. And I don't know off the top, I don't believe the per diem is being paid to attend the conferences through Rocky Senior Housing. I think just the expenses.
So then that leads the question, how do we deal with that from a council point of view? Deputy Mayor
Well,
Sheffield.
Correct. Thank you, Acting Mayor. The problem is that, so two of you go, one of you is a town councillor, the other one's a member at large. The town councillor would get paid the per diem, but the member at large wouldn't? Is that what I'm hearing?
From what I understand, that's how it works with the county. So there's one member that is going, and the county is paying for the conference and their per diem to attend that conference.
Mr. Kraus, how do we deal with this? Like, I mean,
Well, I don't know if we're splitting hairs here or not, because so if you're on FCSS board, you would get paid a per diem to go to the FCSS conference.
Yes.
If you're on the policing committee, you would get paid per diem to go to the Alberta Policing Governance Association conference. So from what I'm hearing, if you're on the Seniors Housing Council, then you should get paid to go to a conference related to that. Does that make sense? It's just a little, I guess, the difference is they get paid an honorarium to attend those, where FCSS, well, they get paid a per diem, so I guess it's the same.
So a member at large in that situation does not get what the elected official gets, or are you suggesting they would get what the?
No, so the public members, so if we take our policing committee, for example, where we have council members and public members, if a councillor member attended the conference, they would be paid a per diem, but our public member would not be paid a per diem to attend, is the way it's set up right now.
Yeah, go ahead.
I find that totally unfair.
I'm not arguing, but I'm just stating,
Yeah.
you know, this is the way it is. So, I mean, we pay a per diem for the meeting, which, I mean, we have to revisit also because that policy is outdated. I think it's $60, is that what it is?
Correct.
Correct. So we pay our public members $60 to attend like a policing committee meeting, but that's the only financial benefit they receive.
Okay, so I guess we're here today to decide what the councillors get paid, but down the road, we need to figure out how we pay our members at large at the same time
Yes.
and pay them fairly. So is that coming up someday in the future, or where's that at?
So after Mayor to Council Schiffel, when Betty, because Betty's in contact with the third-party person looking at the rates, I gave her the policy for him to look at as well. The biggest thing in the policy is we have a bunch of committees, like, say, the Recreation Board, so we need to get certain committees out of it and add, or just keep it blank and more generic. But that public member policy is definitely up for renewal.
Councillor Hutchinson.
So I guess after that conversation, so resolution from council for other conferences not directly related to a committee. And per diem. Well, did you add, Mr. Kraus, and conferences related to a committee would be the same?
Okay, so is everyone okay with giving that direction to administration? Okay, thank you. So the next page is events. So here's where the gray area comes in. Deputy Mayor Shipple.
Well, I look at this and I think we get an honorarium to cover off things that we attend. And I look at this and it's a mixed bag on this page of some should be honorarium and some shouldn't be an honorarium. I think we need to go line by line here and walk through it and determine what's what, and if in fact we need to have a resolution of council on some of these. So that would be my suggestion.
Okay, everyone okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start public engagement. So that's a very vague definition. Councillor Capero.
Yeah, what does that kind of encompass, please?
Acting Mayor to all councils, it could mean anything, like, you guys are always doing public engagement. Some of it in our policy right now is covered under honorarium, but if there's something different that maybe you want to move per diem or by resolution of council, it's just for a discussion topic, really, is all it is.
I guess think down the lines of coffee with a counselor.
Okay, I was just gonna ask about that specific one.
Oh, I didn't miss that one.
Okay, so I mean, as far as having coffees with ratepayers, I would definitely not see that as part of a per diem. That's just something we do. Or telephone calls, or, you know, seeing someone at the grocery store and talking to them. That's not what we're talking about, yeah. So, coffee with a counselor, I mean, that's something concrete we can talk about, so what do we think about coffee with a counselor? Counselor, coffee with a counselor, Counselor Caprero.
Alliteration. I think that should just be underneath the public engagement, the honorarium for coffee with a counselor. It's a couple of hours out of our day. We don't do
Yeah.
them very often. I think it should just fall under honorarium.
I agree with that. Everyone else? Counselor Hutchinson?
I'm just trying to think of what other public engagement, because that could kind of fall under town halls.
Well, we kind of have that,
But it's in there separately
yeah, we
listed.
have that separately.
Yeah, and I think we're thinking on the lower end type of public engagement, the coffee with the counselors, the ribbon cuttings, the, you know,
Parade.
Yeah,
parade, yeah. So,
yeah, I don't envision those ever being a per diem event. Okay, so has administration got enough direction on that? Okay. So regional or intermunicipal networking events. I'm envisioning this something like the event that was in, was it Penhold or Innisfail? That the three of us had attended? Yeah, something like that, I believe should be on a per diem, because it's, you know, we're traveling to go to them. Counselor Capero and then or Deputy Mayor Sheffield.
I think something like that, my preference would be resolution from council required, rather than just anyone being able to go and having the per diem. I think it should be a resolution.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Sheffield.
Thank you. I think it needs to get split into local and away. I think that if it's local, then it's in your honorarium. If it's away, then it becomes per diem. Either way, it gets approved by council. No, it doesn't need to get approved by council if it's an honorarium, just the per diem.
So do we need to split this between in-town, out-of-town? I'm kind of seeing some head nods, but not Counselor Caprero.
So I think anything that's local in town, if you're there to network, I think it probably should fall under honorarium. Anything outside of town, I would prefer to see it be a resolution from council.
I think that makes sense and it's clear. And then it gives administration something to work with. Or is everyone else okay with that? Yep, okay. Ceremonial functions by invitation to present, speak on behalf of town. Counselor Hutchinson.
I think that one, as well as attendance at events, not in official capacity, should be honorarium.
Okay, everyone, I'm seeing a nod. I haven't seen any other nods or comments. Are we okay with that? Deputy Mayor Sheffield.
Well, here again, I've got this in-town, out-of-town split. And I think if it's out of town, you're taking time, travel, all the rest of that stuff. I think that it needs to be per diem for out of town, in-town, honorarium. That'd be my thinking.
Counselor Caprero.
In my mind, if you, like a ceremonial function, an invitation to speak on behalf of the town, that would pretty much only be a local type of thing. I can't think of an example where we would have something like that outside of town.
I'll just use the Japanese twinning event that I'm going to the end of this month that's in Calgary. I would think things like that, and sometimes at those events we are asked to speak. So I would think those events, and I'm kind of leading towards what Deputy Mayor Sheffield said, that in-town events, no, out-of-town events by resolution.
I just want to touch base on the attendance at events not in official capacity. To me, whether you're local, staying local or going out of town, if you're not in an official capacity and you choose to go, it should just fall under your honorarium.
Yeah, I agree with that. What is everyone else? Yes on that? Okay. Okay. Tourism forums? Counselor Hutchinson.
I think per diem on those as well with a resolution. There's a lot of valuable information that comes out of those that help us move forward.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Shipple.
I'm sorry, I'm here again, in town, out of town. If you're going to a tourism forum in town, and I think it serves a couple purposes. Number one, you gain knowledge, but you also are talking to the citizens of our community and making yourself available. If it's out of town, then you got a different clientele, different people that are there. So I think if it's out of town, again, it should be per diem per diem with resolution in town honorarium. I think if there's something happening in town, it's critical we all should be there, you know, or the majority of council.
Go ahead, Counselor Hutchinson.
So tourism forums per diem with resolution by council, whether it's in town or out of town.
Tourism forum in town is honorarium. Out of town is with resolution per diem.
I'll just weigh in on this a little bit. Typically, the tourism forums are generally an all-day thing, which that's a lot to expect from an honorarium to attend something for an all-day. So I would kind of lean more towards resolution, even if it's in town or out of town. Councillor Hutchinson.
Yeah, I would go with per diem resolution from council, whether it's in town or out of town.
Okay, are we in consensus on that? Okay, Mr. Kraus.
So if we're drafting this policy, I think administration would like clarification, what does in town mean? Is it, if there's something at the Pine Hills Golf Course, is that out of town? Or is, if it's in Caroline Parade, for example, is that out of town?
Councillor Caprero.
In my mind, local means town or the county. If we're in our region, we're in our area. That in my mind. I think anything outside of Clearwater County would, in my mind, is considered out of town.
Councillor Musker.
Yeah, thank you. So the tourism forums, I think we just decided that it was going to be a resolution from council per diem. So it wouldn't matter if it was in town or out of town? Correct?
Back up the.
Oh, you're backing up, backing up the list.
town, out of town for.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Is it the border of the town or what?
Deputy Mayor Shippold.
Thank you. That'd be my thought process, that if it's the town boundaries within, that's in town. If you're out of town, then you're out of town. That really draws a hard line in the sand as to what is in town and out of town. So I appreciate where you're at, but I think that if you're heading to Nordegg, that is out of town, still in the county. So I think the town boundary is in town and out of town.
That does make it very cut and dry. There's no question what in town and out of town is. What is everyone's thoughts? You okay with that? Okay. Okay, so we've cleared that for you, Mr. Kraus?
Yep.
Okay.
Making sure we have clarity. on the
Yes.
policy when we adopt it, so.
Okay, so open houses, what do we think about open houses? Councillor Hutchinson.
I'm leaning more towards honorarium for that.
Okay, I'm seeing nodded heads.
Yes, that's where I was at, is honorarium.
For both booked by others.
Booked by others
And
and
booked
for
by
booked
town.
by town. Okay.
I guess that there would be a line there if it was an open house on something that brings economic growth to our community, and they're having an open house in the county.
Well, it brings up Arbutus Hall and our friends out there who've been having open houses on a regular basis.
Paramount, yeah.
Paramount.
Yeah.
What happens? Is that an honorarium? I would, yeah. And Arbutus Hall's okay, but if it's Nordig,
No, I think honorarium.
okay.
Okay, what is everyone, I'm hearing honorarium, is that correct? Yes, okay. So open houses are honorarium. Town halls, which are very similar to open houses. Same thing for town halls? Okay. Okay, is that enough clarification for that, Mr. Kraus, for those ones? Okay. Now we get into other, which is even grayer. So we might as well go through these line by line as well. Responding to public concerns, I think, yeah, that's honorarium, for sure. Everyone's okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Preparation for meetings, honorarium, great. Informal meetings with administration, okay. Timesheets and expense approvals, definitely honorarium. Same thing with check signing, I think that's honorarium. Agenda review meetings,
I think
it's on,
it should be
yeah,
honorarium.
it's honorarium now, so I think we should just continue with that.
Excuse me, Acting Mayor, can I please ask council to use their microphones?
Oh, thank you. Okay, so interviews. I'm assuming this would be in the event to like a CAO left or something along the lines of that?
It's kind of like doing interviews, the press or
Oh,
whatever.
okay. Yeah.
That type of thing.
I would think that should be honorarium as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Courses, general interest, I'm not sure what that would be.
Acting Mayor, if I may, so there's, it literally just general interest, so nothing it could be beneficial to the position, but it doesn't directly relate to anything like municipal related. I actually took that, I believe, off the Blackfalds one, or not the Blackfalds, the Diamond Valley one, so I was just trying to throw everything on here, because there is some general interest courses. I believe one of the counselors reached out about, well, actually, I think it's related, so I won't talk about that one. But there's lots of general interest courses that could benefit something down the road that might not be directly municipally related.
Okay,
So-
so I've got Councillor Hutchinson
Oh.
and Councillor Musker. Oh, okay, so Councillor Musker.
I would like to see this general interest courses resolution from council. Just because then we can decide as a group whether it's worth funding or not, or whether it's worth paying for.
Deputy Mayor Shippold.
I would like to see that in a written request to council for resolution.
Would an email count as written?
I would say yes.
Okay.
So, in a written form to come to a council meeting, or written form, just for clarification for administration,
Well, if it requires resolution, it has to come
come
to
to
the
council,
council.
okay. Okay, I just want to make sure we're very clear that what we're doing. Yes? Yeah.
So Acting Mayor, one of the proposed things with the new, redoing the policy is to actually have a form attached to it based on all of this, developed, that could be filled out by council to bring to a council meeting for any of this. So then it's clear as day what you're asking for, what the request is, so we're gonna create that form ahead of time.
Okay.
Whether it be for like a course, a conference, and then we'll have the cost, the dates, everything included, what's not included, and then so it'll all come together with one form. And of course, it has to be approved through council with the amended policy. But just to make it easier for council, we would be creating that form ahead of time for you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so can we move on to the courses that benefit in the role of council member? What do we think about that one? Do we want to do the same as the one before? Deputy Mayor Shippold.
I'm thinking the same process.
Okay. Everyone's okay with, Councillor Hutchinson?
And per diem, if it's approved.
I'm thinking so.
Okay.
Yeah, so if it comes to council for resolution, that would be part of it, the per diem. So that's a shift from the way the council is doing it now, right? So the elected officials program, council can just enroll in that. So by making it by resolution, council would have to come back for a resolution for all of those types of courses. Just making sure we're clear on
Counselor Musker.
Thank you, and thank you for clarification, Mr. Gross. Yeah, if it's a benefit to the role of a council member, I don't think it needs to come before council for approval. If it's already set up in our policies, yeah, per diem.
So are we talking about things like EOP courses, maybe the Munis 101 orientation? Is that kind of what we're discussing in this
Munis
one?
101 is now mandatory.
So, you know, the elected officials program, and I'll use Councilor Musker's, that's, you know, the parliamentarian course, that would be, under the current one, he did not require to come back to council, because it was related to the role of council. So,
So acting mayor, if I can
Yep.
make a suggestion, there is a training budget. So my suggestion would be is if you take 100 courses and you've reached your training budget, at that time, maybe come back to council to make a resolution to do more.
Counselor Caprero.
I think that's a good suggestion. Thank you for that.
Counselor Musker.
Just one last comment. I want us to avoid burning any unnecessary energy with bringing these things before council for these resolutions. The purpose of the policy is to streamline this stuff. So if we can get that done, I'm all for it.
Okay, so we're good with that to move on to webinars then? So webinars is basically split into two, very similar to what courses are, one for general interest and then one for the benefit of a council member. Deputy Mayor Shippold.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I think that the general interest one should be, you choose to do it, it's under your honorarium. The one with webinars related to the role of council, then I think it should fall in the same as the other ones where it's a per diem, but it's got to be approved by council. Although I understand what Councillor Musker is saying is we're going to, I mean, there's not a whole bunch of them, thank goodness. And I guess if it becomes an issue, then we can review it again. But it provides accountability to all of us around council in terms of any one councillor doing stuff. And it's an understanding as well. So, you know what everybody's doing from a council perspective. We are a team, so what do you know that I don't know? And if you're doing something, maybe I want to do that as well. So it just opens it up to being available to everybody. And so I think it's worthy of coming forward to council.
I've got Counselor Caprero and then Counselor Musker.
Thank you. I agree when it comes to the webinars of general interest that it should just fall under honorarium. The webinars that are related and benefit the role of council, I think, because we do have our training budget, like Ms. Breeze had suggested, I think it should just be the per diem. I don't think it needs to unless you have reached your max with your training budget and you're going to go over. Then I am fine with it coming to council, but otherwise I don't think we need to have it come back every time someone wants to do a webinar.
Counselor Musker.
Yes, thank you. I couldn't have said it better, Councillor Caprero.
Counselor Hutchinson.
So are we talking honorarium or per diem for that?
Which one?
The
Webinars related to council?
I think per diem.
per diem.
I'm on the fence with that because I take a lot of webinars that I could, and I'm throwing myself under the bus, but, you know, anytime there's, I mean, I'm still doing webinars that may be related to the rec board because I think that's always valuable information. I mean, I'm willing to get paid for them if you guys are, but just to let you know, I mean, there's the Cape one that I've registered for already for, what is it, Thursday? Tomorrow, I think. You know, so that's another one. It's a lunch and learn. Economic, the EDA council has tons. And I'm probably doing theirs, I think they have them once a month, and I'm doing those webinars. So, again, I'm totally fine with it if council is fine, but I'm just throwing that out there.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Shippold.
Thank you. You've convinced me, because there are so many out there, and, I mean, if you have a lot of free time, you could really weigh yourself down in this. I think, again, here, I'm agreeing with what you're saying. I would be in favor, it'd be part of your honorarium. And you know what your time is and how much you want to contribute to council. You do get paid an honorarium already, so what is that honorarium for? That could be part of that honorarium. So I would support Councillor Hutchinson on this one and leave it as a honorarium versus a per diem.
So just for clarification, there's a course and then there's a webinar. And what's what? Because we've said for courses, general interest are under the honorarium, but courses are per diem up until your maximum allotted amount of training. So webinars, we're going to say, is a little bit different, but what's the difference between a webinar and a course? That's...
We could define it in the policy for council's review.
Councillor Moosker, did you have? Okay. Deputy Mayor Sheffield.
Yeah, I'm okay with that, to define it and go from there. I think a course is going to be, a course to me defines more education or possible certificate or whatever, whereas a webinar could be sometimes somebody promoting their own product or what they want to do, so.
I just want to make sure we're giving administration good, clear direction when we're bringing this back. Councillor Hutchinson.
I think there's also a difference between a webinar and a Zoom meeting. For example, I did the AB Muni resolution. That was a Zoom meeting. That was carried over from the conference because we didn't have time.
Right.
So that was an actual Zoom meeting. Alberta Health has regular Zoom meetings that you can participate in. Again, it's not necessarily a requirement of our job, but maybe we have I don't know, we throw this out there, is there a different rate that we could apply if it's a Zoom meeting or a webinar? Because if I'm on a webinar that's approved for me to take, and I'm getting paid for 4 hours, and it's sometimes shorter than an hour, but an hour webinar, I think that's a little bit taking advantage of our per diem.
Councillor Moosker.
Thank you. So, two things. I remember what I was going to say. As councilors are all given a training budget, and I think we should trust each other to use that appropriately and to full advantage. So I don't want to be policing the courses that any of you decide you think you should take. If it's covered, it's covered. If it benefits the role that you have at her. It may not be for me, but that's not my decision for you. Regarding remuneration for webinars, like you just, Councillor Hutchinson just brought up, that's not part of this discussion, but it's something I'm very interested in seeing too. Webinars to spend 60 minutes, on a where you don't actually have to engage, you're just receiving information is, 4 hours is a long time to get compensated for that. So we can come up with different remuneration policies for webinars. I don't think that's part of this, that's coming. Those are the two things that I wanted to add.
Mr. Kraus.
Just for clarification of council, so your training budget, the training GL, that is just for course and conference costs. It has nothing to do with
the per
diem or honorarium. Just so there's that separation. So when you say use your training budget, well, that training budget is actually for the actual cost of the conference or course or whatever. The honorarium per diem comes out of the salary portion. So
So here we're back at square one.
Yeah.
Do we want to have a difference between courses and webinars? Because right now we will have a difference between courses and webinars based on our discussion. Counselor Hutchinson.
I think they should definitely be separated like they are here. But I would think, like I said, maybe adding the Zoom meetings in here as well. Because typically the Zoom meetings are, you're engaging, you're in an actual meeting, whereas a webinar is kind of a general, like you said, you don't necessarily turn on your microphone or your screen.
Yeah. I agree, there's a definite difference between a webinar and a Zoom meeting, because Zoom meetings, you have an agenda that you've had to read prior to the meeting. Now you're having the meeting that it's a much different beast than what a webinar is.
So Octomara's, but meetings I think are covered elsewhere in here,
Yeah.
regardless if it's in person or
Zoom,
or electronically.
Counselor Caprero.
I'm thinking now, so I think courses related to the benefit of the role we had done as per diem. Is that what we agreed with?
Yes.
I'm thinking maybe webinars, maybe either type is just part of the honorarium.
So I'm just gonna throw, because it's not black and white, and there's a lot of gray in this. I know for the Parkland Regional Library Board, there is a orientation course that needs to be taken as part of that board. Would that now fall under honorarium, or, because it's now, it's a meeting, like you're doing a meeting. So how does that fall into this, just for gray area? Counselor Caprero.
To me, that's a committee that you're sitting on. Like, I think that's kind of different than
That's different, okay.
these kind of things. I would assume since it is a committee that you are on and it's a mandatory thing, then you would be paid.
Okay.
How you normally would be.
Deputy Mayor Sheppel.
Thank you. I'm thinking out loud now, but I'm wondering if possibly we don't put a set fee for these kind of meetings at $100 or something like that, and say, hey, if you participate in a Zoom meeting, any of the three that are on here, you get a set fee of X amount of money, period. And it's not going to be the equivalent to what you get for 4 hours, but it's something. And so just a set fee of $100 for those kind of processes, I just throw out there, thinking out loud.
What's everyone's thoughts on that? Counselor Busker.
I was under the impression that the rates were coming at a later meeting. The rate suggestions.
Yeah.
Acting Mayor to Councillor Musker, but this, we can bring this to our third-party contractor and say, you know, council's willing to look at separating this, right? So they can base it on all the feedback from here still.
Thank you.
And maybe that's the way of solving this, is there's a separate webinar rate. What does everyone think of that? Okay, yes, okay. Okay, so have we given administration enough direction on courses and webinars? Are you clear as mud?
Yeah, Camara, I think we'll work with it and
Okay.
bring it back. I mean, this is coming back as a draft policy to council,
Yes.
and you can see if we hit the mark or not on this one. So,
Okay, so looking at the next two, attendance at Christmas parties, municipal social events, I think that's honorarium. I don't think there's any per diem there. Everyone agree with that? Okay. And I think we made our list. So Mr. Kraus, do we need to make any motions? We've got the recommended one up there, okay.
up there, yeah.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Sheffield.
So having read through this policy, are we here only to determine what these 5 pages we looked at, is that the end of the conversation, or are we going to talk about anything else within that policy?
No, this is council's review of the remuneration policy, so if council wants to bring up some other revision they want us to draft in for council's review, now would be the time.
Okay, so I have a couple items, if you'd allow me,
Yep,
Acting Mayor.
yep, for sure.
One is when we have 2 meetings in one day, and we add the hours together, and we get paid for one meeting essentially. And I'd like to look at, if they run concurrently, then I have no problem with that concept. If you have a meeting in the morning, and you're here in the morning, and then you have a meeting here in the afternoon, then I do not like that concept. And I don't like combining the hours. So I think that each one should be independent of the other. So if you run with 2 meetings, one at 9 in the morning and one at 7 o'clock at night, then deciding the hours doesn't make sense because it destroys your day. So I'd really like to have a discussion about changing that, and I'm not sure how my fellow councillors feel about that.
Councillor Hutchinson.
Yeah, I've said that a number of times, and a good example was last week. We had council meeting and Councillor Capero was absent. And then we had a community events committee meeting after. We're under the 4 hours, but her and I get paid the same for that day. Not throwing you under the bus, but you agree too. Like it's tough when you've got something in the morning and then you've got something at 4 o'clock. My day's gone. My day's shot. So that's a change I would like to see.
I agree with that. You know, it may be an hour and a half meeting, one in the morning and one in the afternoon, but it's not just the hour and a half, it's the time you've got to be here before the meeting, because you can't just show up as the meeting starts. And sometimes an hour and a half meeting might have been scheduled for 2 or 3 hours, and you're booking that time off in your day, even though it's only an hour and a half meeting. And two meetings of that can constitute a whole day. So I do agree that they should be separate per diems.
Okay, another item I have, and that's under number 1, and that's just the guidelines. And then we've touched on it here a bit, and that's in regards to if we have a meeting out of town or in town. And when it talks about dealing with all the different things, one thing it doesn't do is talk about if a meeting is out of town, how we deal with that in terms of getting paid. So I think under number 1, someplace in there we just need to specify what in town, out of town is going to be. And I think we've already determined that if the town boundary is it, that just needs to get added in there. I think we've dealt with it already, but I just wanted to make sure. Then the third thing I have, and that's the cost of living increase. Just to get clarity on, there's a table in here under number 2.2, 2C. And I think is that the table? No, that is not
No.
the table. Someplace there's a table in here, it goes back to 2019 rates. I'm assuming that that's going to get taken out. Okay, good. And then there's a section about phones that's going to get taken out. And then there's an area about spouses getting paid for meals and whatever. At this point, if I don't have a spouse, but if one of you take your spouse with you to a convention, the fee for the meals aren't included in that, and I think they should be. I know that puts you guys onto a precarious position because of where you're at, but I do think we have to acknowledge spouses, and if they go, and I think that if they're, the room's paid for already, everything's paid for. The only thing that's not paid for is the food, and I do think that the food for a spouse should be paid for if they do attend a convention or whatever else. So I'm not sure where everybody else is on that, but I think family is integral, important. If you didn't have support of a family to run for council, you'd be hooped. So I guess where I'm at is I'm advocating that we should change that to pay for spouses if they attend a function.
Councillor Musker.
Thank you. I agree. Thank you for bringing this up. How would you feel also about a second ticket for ticketed events that council is invited to?
I would think that we would support that as well. There's not a lot of it. It's not a big dollar amount. I think I agree. We really, in this case, as bylaw, is you as a councillor, and doesn't matter if you have a spouse or not, too bad for them. And I totally disagree with that concept. I mean, they have things they have to give up in their lives as well, so.
Councillor Caprero.
I was just gonna say that I agree wholeheartedly with that.
So then that's something that can be brought to the third party, is that what we're, or is this, that's to this one? Okay. Okay. Councillor Hutchinson.
I would like to see, again, back to Rocky Senior Housing, where I'm getting paid a piddly amount. I would like to see the per diem
Top up.
topped up to what I would normally get to attend a meeting. The county does it that way.
That does also occur on the Parkland Regional Library Executive Committee. They pay a per diem, but it's far less than what the actual per diem is for the town. Sorry, Councillor Caprero.
That's okay. I would be in support of that.
Deputy Mayor Shepherd.
Well, I'm in support of that as well, but what happens if you get paid more than what our council rate is? Are you gonna pay us back as a town?
I was gonna say, I have not come across that yet.
Yeah, I haven't come across that, but, you know, I'm going from what the county does, and on theirs, you know, they put a little asterisk or a star and says, you know, $60 was what I was paid to be there for 4 hours, 3 hours, whatever it is, and then the county adds to that.
The only reason I ask that is the county rates and the town rates are a bit different. And so I'm assuming that some committees that you sit on would be potentially using county rates, and some you may sit on may use town rates. So there's a variance in rates there. So the concern I have is, as much as I support the idea of getting topped up, I mean, it's just one of those things, I'm just not sure how strongly I agree with it, because there are different rates out there for different organizations that are used.
Councillor Caprero.
I'm just wondering if it's something that we could specify in there, that if the honorarium received from the committee is less than the per diem, if that, like, just to specify that in there, and then we don't have that issue if it's more. If that makes sense?
You okay with that? Okay. Any other additions or changes we want to look at the policy? Not seeing any, so then we would just need a motion, I know we have it up on the screen, to be able to bring this back. Councillor Caprero.
Thank you. I'll make the motion. Be it resolved that council instruct administration to take the feedback and recommendations from today's discussion to incorporate into a draft remuneration policy and bring back to a future GPC meeting for council's consideration.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Do we have any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, call out to a vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Oh, good conversation. That was a good debate. Yeah, long one. 2 o'clock, we'll move on to 7.1, the RFD for data center. And I see Mr. Hartling and Mr. Schwader coming up to the front.
Good afternoon, Acting Mayor, Council. Mr. Hartling and I are here today to discuss direction that was given by Council in regards to a data center, whether it's possible to have a data center within our community. So as far as a data center, we did a little research in regards to, under comments, Alberta AI data center strategy is, there's one out there by the Alberta government. They also have a fact sheet that I included. Also, Invest Alberta had an information sheet. We also got information regarding a data center going into Rocky View County. In regards to size-wise, it's requiring 12.6 acres, which we have land within our community that can host such a data center of that size, and it's one of the larger ones that's being proposed for Alberta. Big questions were supply of power, so we reached out to Fortis in regards to what Fortis could supply presently within the community, and the information's there. most data centers take up to 15 megawatts, and that's a small one. The one down in Rocky View is doing 90 megawatts, but of course they have more sources for power down in that area. As it explains from Fortis, they have 15 megawatts, but not saying it will be available for strictly that data center if somebody else comes along and needs that mega or that power from the megawatts. In regards to if power is required, Fortis would have to work with Elta Link in regards to getting more power within the area, but also that's a cost to the data center as well for that power to be allocated or rerouted or to that data center. Water requirements, we tried to get as much information from the Rocky View data center as far as what kind of water they're using down there, but we weren't able to access that information. But we found some information from other data centers throughout North America, and granted, some of this information is from hotter spots down in Arizona, but on average, there's 68,000 liters per day, but it depends on the cooling system within that data center, whether it's a circulation or cooling system or if it's straight water coming in. It varies for the amount of liters that is required for a data center. On one of the pages, I put information for what we can supply for capacity-wise from our water treatment plant. And you can see the information there. A typical winter, slow summer day, we generate 2.4 million liters of water. Of course, as summer happens and more uses of water, it's 2,600 to 2,800 cubic meters per day. And on a busy day, it's 4.3 million liters. So as far as not knowing what the data center needs for capacity of water, but just looking at the numbers, I think we would be able to accommodate the usage for water if a data center sets up shop within our area. Also, town storage capacity is presently 6 million liters as well for water. So I do touch on the financial side of it. If a feasibility study is to take place for a data center wanting to come to the area, we reached out to a couple of consultants, and it'd be roughly a $20,000 project to do a feasibility study for a data center to be completed. Questions?
Councillor Capraro.
Thank you. I have one question.
Yep.
So just in terms of land, for example, the 12.5 acres that Rocky View had used, you had mentioned that we have that land in town. Is that town-owned land, or is that land that we would have to look at possibly purchasing?
That'd be private. That's private development, developed land.
Okay.
Yeah, undeveloped land.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Councillor Musker.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Thank you to Mr. Schwader and Mr. Hartling for bringing all this information together in one place for us. It's a really comprehensive report that you've given. When I brought this motion forward, I was looking for very much a high-level view, and you've provided that. So we have parcels of undeveloped land available within Rocky Mountain House. The water treatment plant has plenty of spare capacity for cooling water. The power supply is questionable, but from my perspective, it's up to the proponent of this data center to come up with a business case for this. So I just wanted to know, through all this process, if we had the potential to host something like this. I mean, I'm not interested in the town of Rocky Mountain House building a data center, but I just want to know if this is something we can promote, that, hey, we've got these things, and you've provided that. I'm not interested in making the investment in a feasibility study. I think a developer would have to look at that regarding a business case, doing a model for that. But this is really good information, and thank you.
Councillor Hutchinson.
Thank you. So this feasibility study or case study, would this be something similar to Rival Trade, when there was the background and there was things done before they actually put boots in the ground?
Mayor to Councillor Hutchison. Yes, it would be a feasibility study in the same mandate, basically, is getting the details of what it take to develop and what it would look like in its production and so on and so forth. And with hiring the consultant, they will take a complete in-depth dive into doing so, as we did with the brewery case that stimulated that development and investment.
Councillor Hutchinson.
Not that I like spending money, but I think it could be an advantage to the community. Was there anything, like how many employees, did we get any kind of details on that? I didn't see anything like to build, or is that what would be included in what a consultant would do? You know, how many employees it's going to have once it's completed, how much, or how many employees for construction of it, those kind of things. Would that be in the feasibility study?
Yes, that would be in the report as well. And it'd depend on the size of the data center that is being constructed and if there's room left for growth with it as well. Maybe they'll just start off with a mid-sized one and grow to the size of the one that they're building in Calgary, which is one of the larger ones in Alberta, next to the one that they're developing up in Grand Prairie County as we speak. There is expected to triple data center capacities by 2030. AI data center market size will be more than double by 2030 to over $82 billion in investment, they predict. This is a Government of Alberta report that I'm reading from.
Councillor Hutchinson.
Are we aware of any grants that may be available for a case study to be done?
I haven't dived into any of that yet, but we'll seek and search.
I just with you know the plan that the government has put forward and what's happening around the province right now, I would think that would be a direction I would like to see explored if there is grant money available to do it.
Yeah, this is something that is obviously on the province's radar, and it's obviously on, business radar. Data centers are becoming a big thing, and it sounds like the province of Alberta wants to bring them here. And we're in the province of Alberta, and why don't we want them in Rocky Mountain House? So I think this is something that we should look at. No different than when we did the rival trade feasibility study, and that bared fruit, and we had it. So I think that this is something that, we're always looking at ways of diversifying our economy and making things better and more magnificent, and this is a way that we could do it. Any other thoughts from council? Any direction we want to give administration? Councillor Hutchinson.
I think I would like to explore the option or the opportunity to see if there's any grant funding available, and bring back to council if we find anything.
Okay. So are you making that a motion? Deputy Mayor Sheffield.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Here again, I hate making decisions, uninformed decisions, and I feel in this case I'm sort of sitting on the fence. I don't know if it's going to employ 10 people, 2 people, or 42 people. And I guess where I'm at is if we're going to spend money, there has to be something come back to the town of Rocky Mountain House from that. I guess we'll get it through, if they use a lot of our power, we can get it through our sort of called franchise figures, get a little bit back. But I guess I'd like to know some information about what the benefits to the town of Rocky Mountain House are. Yes, we can do it, it appears, but what are the benefits? How many employees does it have? And I'm sure it varies in terms of size. Just need to know a bit more before I decide I'm going to spend $20,000 on something that maybe has 1 employee and is going to be in the county. And so that's where I'm at.
If I could add to that, some of the research I did, I noticed the one in Calgary is going to be employing over 100 tech people. And they're in the six-digit plus remuneration case. So if you even look at a mid-sized one, we could look at potentially 40, 50 tech people as well of that sort.
Councillor Hutchinson.
I'll make a motion that, what am I doing?
This one being drafted, I don't know if you know what we're talking about.
Be it resolved, the Governments and Priority Committee asks administration to bring more information regarding potential grant opportunities and deployment capabilities about a data center to the GPC meeting of March 11th, 2025.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Do we have discussion on that particular motion?
Just back, Mayor, for clarification, I don't know if we'd be able to bring back employment capabilities at this time. I mean, I think it depends on the size. I think the feasibility study would determine what we're capable of servicing and handling in town, which would then equate back. So I think I would like councils just to let us explore granting and bringing it back. Does that make sense? No, Councillor Schipple does not agree with me.
No, I think, I'm not looking for hard and fast numbers. I'm just saying, hey, if you got a certain size build, how many employees do they have? And if we have some around the province kicking around already, let's just get a feel for it. I'm not looking for the hard and fast. I'm just looking for something that's going to numb the pain of spending $20,000. So that's what I'm looking for.
Okay, so Councillor Hutchinson, are you leaving your motion as is?
I think I would like to amend the motion to delete the, to find the, okay, are you deleting it? So just to have the granting opportunities for data center, to explore that for the next meeting. And, we can decide at that time, we can do some own research on our own to find out how many employees are in a data center just for the meantime.
Deputy Mayor Schippold.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I'd like to voice my opinion against that motion and have that change to add that sentence that was deleted back in there again, just to get a bit of information. Again, I just say, hey, any information is better than no information, even if it's a bit vague. I just don't know what we're voting on. Yes, if there's grants, that's one thing, and how much energy are we going to spend on it? If it's employs 50 people, a six-digit number incomes, I think we should be all over it. I don't think we should be wasting time. So anyway, that's where I'm at. So again, I'm speaking against your motion the way it is, and would ask for a friendly amendment to add that back in.
Councillor Hutchinson.
I just did a quick search, and it said a typical data center employs 30 to 50 people per building, depending on its size. Smaller facilities potentially operating with as few as 15 staff. So, having said that, I would just like to keep my motion as it is and take advantage of granting money if we can get it.
Okay, so would you have more discussion on this particular motion before we call it to a vote? Okay, I'm not seeing any more discussion, so I will call that to a vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? And that is carried. Okay, I think this is probably a good time to take a 10-minute break. And I will take a 10-minute break and we will come back in 10 minutes. Okay, welcome back to our meeting. I am going to move on to item 7.2, the Community Standards Bylaw, and I see Mr. Schwader is still here, Mr. Kraus, okay.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. So this comes actually, these changes to the Community Standards Bylaws comes from two separate conversations of council. The first one was on unsightly properties, and was really, the discussion was around encampments, and are they unsightly if it's visible from a public road or not. So, while the bylaw definitely, the way it existed in its current form, constitutes, yes, it can be determined unsightly, but there was still that gray area or hesitation. So there's clarification in the draft that just specifies that it's, whether it's visible or not from a public roadway, it can be determined unsightly to the public. So, which would provide our peace officers clear direction that like such things as an encampment can be addressed. The second topic that came out of discussion of council was, it was really focused on empty stores downtown where they looked vacant, and for appearance, council was going down the path of having window coverings on it to make it look occupied and more presentable, more aesthetic to the general public. So we've added added to section 4 unoccupied buildings. So, and we kind of expanded that because we also included unoccupied buildings in the residential area, going off of what is required in the Alberta Fire Code, which requires unoccupied buildings to be secured. So on the residential side is just, yes, you can cover up the windows, but you got to paint the wood so it's not as blatant as an abandoned building. So you just paint the wood to match the house so it's not so visible. And then in the commercial district, where council was really focused, was the covering of any glass entryways or doors to provide the appearance the building is occupied, be aesthetically pleasing to the streetscape, and couldn't contain information on lease rates or leasing availability or so forth. So we're bringing these draft amendments to council for your consideration, and if this is the way council wants to go.
Okay, thank you for that report. Deputy Mayor Shippold has his light on.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Just a couple questions about 4.12 sub C, B and C. I just have a problem with a word in there, and it's to prevent unauthorized entry, and I don't think you can ever prevent unauthorized entry. I think the word prevent in both of those B and C needs to be changed, maybe something deter entry or whatever. I don't think you can ever prevent it, short of putting up a brick wall. So I just a wordsmithing issue there, nothing major, if that makes sense. Changing out the word prevent to possibly a word such as deter entry.
Okay, did that change the meaning of what we're talking here, or is that an
No.
acceptable change?
No, I think the wording just comes out of the Alberta Fire Code,
Okay.
but I mean, our bylaw doesn't have to be as restrictive. I mean, the
Yeah.
Fire Code would take precedence at the end of the day anyway, but if a fire inspector came, but it softens, makes it's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
And just to let just remind council and the public watching, when the recording of the windows, that actually also falls under one of our programs where they can, we can provide a grant to that through the facade program, correct? Yeah. So, yes, we're saying you have to do this, but we also have
A
a
grant.
granting program that you can access for it.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for making that clarification and that addition, Mr. Gross. Councillor Hutchinson.
Would there be somewhere in here to put a timeline? Like, it's in the policy, but it doesn't say anything that a commercial building that's vacant right now has to be done by whatever, I don't know, a timeline of something. How do we deal with that? Because otherwise, if they don't do it, once the policy comes in effect, 10 buildings on Main Street will be fined. So I'm just wondering about that.
Acting Mayor to Councillor Hutchinson. Ideally, if we give a notice from the Peace Officers Protective Services, we usually put a date of when it needs to be completed by. So that's when, usually we give them if, depends how big the storefront would be or what's involved. We'll probably allocate, 3 to 4 weeks for them to get it done type thing. We'll give them enough time. Some of the business owners and building owners live outside of the area as well. So some of the vacant buildings that, are owned by a lease company or managed by a lease company. So, some of them are from down east, so we have to give them a few weeks to get things organized on their part. But usually we give a notice with a complete date.
Okay. And Councillor Capero.
Thank you. So just for clarification, if we go ahead and we approve all of this here today, so the business owners that own property that this would fall into, they will get notices, like they will be told of the change in policy. And I don't want a bunch of business owners to come back saying, we had no idea that this changed, just so that we know that they will be notified in some kind of way about the change.
And it would be a building, we would approach the building owner, of course, because if it's vacant, it's owned by the building owner. And ideally, we'd give them, if it's a notice, we'll give them enough time to get it done. We could do a courtesy letter in regards to the change to the bylaw and see if they act on themselves to get it done. And if not, and ideally, to spread the word in regards to the RAP grant, like we have, maybe that's an opportunity for us to share that information as well with the storefront improvement program.
I think that's a good idea, just to give them that notice and let them know that that had changed, and yes, the information about the program.
I agree with Councillor Capero. That's, we've got to make sure that they understand the bylaws changed and how it affects them and how, the granting process can help with the store facade. So I think definitely it's a good thing to just let them know before we start issuing notices. Any more discussion, changes, concerns on this? Deputy Mayor Shippold.
If not, I'll also make the motion. Let it resolve that the Governance and Priorities Committee rise and report the draft Community Standards Bylaw to the February 18, 2025 regular council meeting for council's consideration with the amendments as discussed.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Councillor Hutchinson.
Does this have to be advertised, the bylaw, with it being changed at all? No? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Do we have any other discussion on the particular motion? I see your light's still on. Nope. Okay.
Sorry,
Sorry.
Can I ask one just quick?
Yes.
Do we need to put it into the motion that notices or whatever they're called will be sent to the business
No,
owners? to let them know?
administratively, we'll just do that. We'll just
Okay.
follow that direction. We'll just send out like advisory letters to business owners, and then take
Okay.
it down that.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call out to a vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to 7.3, the Rocky IDP Plan Amending Bylaw.
Good afternoon, Acting Mayor and Council, once again. This request for decision is to make changes and review the Rocky Clearwater County Intermunicipal Development Plan with the proposed amendments and present and present an amended bylaw to Council for approval. The IDP committee met on January 27th. There was a motion from Councillor Hutchinson that the committee direct administration for the town of Rocky Mountain House in Clearwater County to proceed with the creation of a bylaw to amend the 2007 Rocky Clearwater Intermunicipal Development Plan with changes as directed. So with the IDP bylaw, it's got to go through a public hearing, which we'll get to if it's passed on first reading on February 18th. A little bit of background information why we're here in regards to the IDP. In May 2023, Clearwater County adopted their new MDP,
And one of the components of that new MDP allowed for application for a third title, second parcel out, on a parcel quarter of land. In 2024, Clearwater County received several inquiries related to potential subdivision applications for properties identified within the Rocky Clearwater Intermunicipal Development Plan 2007. Administration from the town of Rocky and Clearwater County met on December 5th, 2024 to discuss some of the prospective subdivision applications, the rationale for amendments to the IDP, and agreed in principle on what would be amenable to both municipalities for recommendation to the IDP committee for the review and approval. Attached for the IDP's committee review, revision, and subsequent recommendation to respective councils is the Rocky IDP with tracked changes. The amendments within the attached IDP are considered a first step to IDP amendments to address existing application requests, and town and county administration also discussed bringing the IDP committee an overall IDP Clearwater IDP update process to take place later in 2025. Being that an IDP is created by bylaw, a bylaw to amend the bylaw is required in order to enact any amendments to the IDP, however minor. So there's 3 sections that we're changing in the IDP. First section's 5.1, agriculture uses. The changes are in red. I'm not sure if we just want to go through the red and discuss each one.
Yep.
Does that
Yep.
work?
Yeah,
Okay.
let's do that.
So on objective number 2, it's been added to avoid the premature subdivision and conversion of agricultural lands to non-agriculture use outside the policies permitting subdivision in the applicable municipalities' municipal development plan. So in 5.1.3, the conversion of predominantly agricultural lands within the rural policy area to non-agriculture use shall not occur until an area structure plan or an outline plan has been approved. This requirement does not apply to second and third title subdivisions or redesignation under the land use bylaw of a portion of a parcel to the non-agriculture designation where no subdivision is proposed. So, Laura, if I can get you to pull up the map, the IDP map. Yeah, it's at the very back. So you just kind of give you a boundary as far as where the rural policy area is compared to the long-term boundary. So ideally with the red that's going all the way around on the outskirts, that'd be the rural policy area, like the planned area. And then within that, just so everyone's on the purple here is the long-term boundary area. Because 5.1.4 talks about the long-term boundary. A conversion of predominantly agricultural lands within the existing town boundaries or between the existing and long-term boundaries to non-agriculture uses shall not occur until an area structure plan or outline plan has been approved. This requirement does not apply to second title, first parcel out subdivision, and may not apply to additional subdivisions if the town and county have otherwise agreed in writing. So, you want to talk about agriculture use, or does that make sense, what I've just said?
Deputy Mayor Schipel.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. So I read through this document, and there's a couple statements that I think are contradictory. I think this document is wrote in 2007, and the development, the way development occurs has changed a whole bunch since 2007. And I find this document very restrictive. And your reference now is becoming how more restrictive it's going to become in that area. And it covers a large area. So you had indicated there's going to be an update process, and I'm not sure if that update processing is an overall review or just a correction of some of the changes that have happened due to the county's land use bylaw changes. So the policy starts out by saying it's a broad-based policy. but it gets into being pretty much down to where the nails can go and the boards have to be laid, and it gets far more in depth. And so when I read that document, it almost felt like it was wrote in anger back in 2007 saying, this is what we're going to do and this is what you're going to do. And I don't think it's that way anymore. And maybe it's just a misconception on my part, but I guess where I'm at is I'd like to know if and when the whole document in its total will get looked at, and if it can be maybe just a little more milder in terms of how it comes across. I don't know, that's just my perception.
Mr. Kraus?
Yeah, so just for, for council's clarification, so the amendments that are proposed today are really just a reactionary to what the county is experiencing now. They amended their MDP to allow second and third titles out of a quarter section. In the IDP, that's not even permitted. So, and they've received some requests, 2 requests, I think, just to allow that second subdivision out of the quarter. So really what we're doing today, or what the county wants to do today, is amend the IDP just to take care of those issues. Now, set that aside, in 2025, both the town and the county have budgeted $25,000 each to revamp this whole IDP. So that will occur in 2025, probably towards the later. The county's the lead on that. But that's to take a fresh look at everything, and that can address how development has changed and how we want to move forward. Does that answer your question, Deputy Mayor?
Yes, that answers my question, and that's a breath of fresh air. Thank you.
So I think the biggest thing that we're talking about today is allowing third title or not allowing third title out of the lands right adjacent to Rocky Mountain House.
Yeah, so there's 2 boundaries, as Mr. Schwader has said. One is basically our annexation, our future growth area. And then there's the rural policy area. So typically in our future growth area in an IDP, it is fairly restrictive because we don't want ad hoc developments that would impede future growth of the municipality. But when we sat down with the county administration saying, yes, we recognize, you guys are allowing second and third, so why don't we just do it on a common sense basis, and that we'll put it in the IDP that you can do the second and third, but we're going to look at it on a case-by-case basis. If it makes sense, if it's a piece of fragmented land by a creek or whatever, and it wouldn't impede future growth, then let's approve it. And if it's out in the rural policy area, which is, way beyond our future growth area, we basically said, you guys have at it, follow your MDP, allow your second and third, up to you guys. So that's the way administratively we work, because they're a rural policy area. 50 years from now, maybe we'll be looking at it, but that's too far out. So.
That map takes us beyond the golf course. If we get there in 50 years, good luck, okay?
You don't know how big of a data center's coming now, Deputy Mayor.
Oh, I'm getting excited. It's gotta be massive.
Yeah.
No, I think the revisions to this make sense. I mean, anything that is right close to Rocky Mountain House, well, obviously we want to be able to have a discussion about that and make a good decision. Anything that's out by the golf course or the Paterni subdivision, that's a long ways away from us ever getting out to that area, so I think these revisions make sense. And then we can relook at it next year when we redo the whole IDP.
And we're just in the beginning of this process. There has to be a public hearing, and then both councils will hear from the public on it, and then future revisions could be made depending on that public hearing, right? We want to go to it,
Yes.
open-minded, for sure.
Go ahead, Councilor.
If there's no more discussion, I would make the motion, be it resolved, that council rise and report the draft Rocky Clearwater Intermunicipal Development Plan Bylaw 2025/04 for first reading to the February 18th, 2025 regular council meeting.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Do we have any discussion on that particular motion? Not seeing any discussion, so I'll call out to a vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to item 7.4, the wayfinding project.
Yeah, I'll just gather my stuff here and, okay. Okay, so wayfinding project. This is the project that was budgeted in 2023 for an RFP to study the wayfinding for 2024, which we did hire a consultant, went through the process, indicated number of signs, where to be located. And then in December of 2024 at budget meetings, council wanted to relook at the wayfinding signs as far as project costing and design, and that's why I'm back here today in regards to the wayfinding sign project. In regards to the project, we have it for a 3-year, proposal in regards to 2025, 2026, 2027 as far as budgeted amounts. For 2025, we budgeted $200,000, and the signs that were going to be proposed for 2025 were 6 primary vehicles, 6 secondary vehicles, updating existing large trail maps and updating small trail maps for a cost of $200,000. In regards to, I have some alternatives in my report and a recommended action. I guess any questions in regards to the project?
Deputy Mayor Shipple.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I think the citizens of our community have many questions to this project, but short of that, I think from a council perspective, what I was imagining happening is that we put an amount of money into the budget, and it was going to go out to the RFP, and we're going to see what we're going to get for that money. Understanding that there could be some savings if we did it or didn't do it, and what the signs are going to look like. In the report, it refers to the signs maybe being wood, maybe being aluminum, maybe being fake wood. There's a whole bunch of things. I just don't know what we're going to get. And that's still a question in my own mind as to, they give you alternatives as to what the construction material is going to be. And I guess in my own mind, I don't know what we're getting. So I think from a council perspective, we said, okay, here's X amount of money in our budget. I think that's the RFP that we should do and see what we get and see what the signs are going to look like and see where we can save money on that. Short of that, the other alternative that would be high in my list would be, okay, here's $100,000, let's see what we're going to get and if we like what we're going to get. But I would just like to see what we're going to get for the full amount that we've got in our budget. And at that point, have another look at, after an RFP, what it's going to look like. And I don't know if that's acceptable, doable, or not. And so I'd ask Mr. Kroos if that is something that we could do.
No, that is acting mayor to deputy mayor. No, we can do that. I mean, we can release the RFP with requesting options on materials and costing for like full aluminum, wood, and bring it back to council.
Sir. Excuse me, Councillor Hutchinson.
I like that idea. I agree with what you're saying. We're not quite sure what, because there were a lot of options on the initial report. Would the recommended motion need to change?
Yeah, I would probably say the council instructs administration to release an RFP for the wayfinding sign project with options, 4 different options.
Design options? Yeah.
Someone
Okay,
here-
I'll
okay,
make-
someone prepared to
I
make that.
just maybe put also on the, in that administration brings the RFP results back to council for approval.
Okay. So be it resolved that council direct administration to release an RFP with different design options and bring back to council? Did that cover it all?
Okay, so we have that motion on the table. Do we have discussion on that motion? I just do have a little bit discussion. I like the motion. But also seeing that, you know, in this report that we can finalize the content of the sign and oversee the installation, does that mean our public works will actually install the signs? Is that what we're saying overseeing is?
I think that would be an option that we would put in there, like a separate cost for installation.
Yeah.
And then we can review it then for the most cost-effective way and see if our, department can install them also. And maybe it's a 50-50. Maybe the large signs the contractor installs, but like the smaller signs our crew installs. So I
Okay.
think it just keeps those options open.
Yeah, just anything we can do to mitigate the cost of this program is definitely worth looking at. Okay, so we have the motion on the table. Do we have any more discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I will call that to a vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, so moving on to correspondence for action. 8.1, the draft agenda for the Clearwater County Rocky Mountain House Wild Rose School Division joint meeting. We have a draft agenda for that meeting. It's fairly open at this point. Is there anything that we need to discuss or talk about for this agenda? Deputy? Oh,
No, yeah, so it's the school division's request that council review the agenda and see if council wants any additional items on the agenda, so.
Deputy Mayor Shibble.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. One thing that we've had many discussions about around this table is the maintenance of the fields. I'm not sure if that's an item for discussion at this meeting or not, but it always seems like there's issues in the summertime about grass cutting, and I'm not sure if that needs clarity or doesn't need clarity. The other thing is the Red Deer Polytech wing of the school as to if there's any updates in terms of what's happening there. And then thirdly is where school enrollments are today compared to 3 years ago, 5 years ago, and what they're looking like in the future.
Okay, thank you. I would also like to talk about the Rocky Ecole Elementary School location. I know that there's been discussions in the past about it being so old that it predates existing agreements. It'd be nice to know in their long-term capital plan, I know they have plans for that school to not be there, but how does that mean, what happens to the land? I'd like to know a firm idea of what happens to that land and what the process is.
So the land for the Ecole Elementary?
Yes.
So, okay, history of school, before a predate, can't remember the date, it was owned by the school division. When the MGA changed in, I think, 95, they became designated school reserve or municipal reserve. So if it's a school reserve or municipal reserve, it transfers back to the town. If it predates that, it's actually the school division's land, and they would sell it. Like, we don't just naturally acquire it, we would have to purchase it. Now, the land that Ecole Elementary is on is 3 parcels. One is school reserve, and 2 other are school division lands. So those 2 parcels, which is 90% of the land, is owned by the school division.
Okay. I think that's worth talking about at this meeting to decide what plans they have for it. If they're gonna sell it, are they going, who gets first right of refusal? Just things like that. Councilor Cabrera.
I'm just wondering if that's putting the cart before the horse a little bit until they know, because they're not gonna do anything there until they hear back on their capital plans and from the government. I just don't know if that's putting the cart before the horse, if they even know for sure what is happening there.
I just think it's worth having a quick discussion about it, just to see what would go on with that land. And it may be nothing happens at that meeting, but I'd like to at least talk about it real quick. Deputy Mayor Shepherd.
I would agree with Councillor Caprero. I think it's just premature. I think we can have the discussion, but I think at the end of the day, it could be a mute subject down the road if they don't get funding to build another school. So should we have that discussion, I guess, is a question.
I mean, we don't have to add it to the agenda. I was just thinking it would be a good topic to discuss just while we have them there and while we have everybody that can make decisions there. But,
We can have it on the agenda.
yeah.
If there's no updates, there's no updates, I
It could be a
guess.
10-second agenda item. It could be a 10-minute agenda item.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else anybody else wants to see on that agenda?
I just want to clarify when I talk about school enrollment here. I'd like to have it compared to other schools in jurisdictions the same size as ours to see if our enrollment is comparable to provincial averages or other municipalities with our size, or if we're declining. I guess that gives me an indication as to where our age group is at in our community. If we're getting older, then they'll decline more rapid. So.
Councillor Hutchinson?
I agree, we'd like to know that, but we also need to know what the separate system enrollment is too, because this, there seems to traditionally, historically go in shifts where one loses and goes to the other, and then they go back, so, if we don't have that number, we can't, it's not really a true number.
So maybe it's not a mute conversation. Can we get the Catholic school to the, would the Christian school be in their numbers, I wonder, or? Sorry, would the Christian school be in their numbers, or the Catholic school if they can get those numbers?
The Christian, I believe, is in Wild Rose, because you
Okay.
have to register through Wild Rose to attend the Christian school.
Okay.
But the other one would be Red Deer Catholic. So, Mr. Kraus, what
Yeah,
do we?
so actually in the report that they've attached, if you click on it, they do have their enrollment history in there for their 4 schools. Administration could reach out to Red Deer Catholic to see if we can get the same information and provide it to council if that's all that council wants. It's on page 10 of that attached report, actually, at the bottom.
Thank you. I didn't even realize there was an attachment on that document, so
Yeah,
thanks for that. I'll go
I don't
back
think
and
we
read it.
highlighted that, but yeah.
Yeah.
So is that information that we can get for that meeting or ask for that meeting for the, like on the Catholic side, not the?
Well, the Wild Rose probably wouldn't obtain that information for us, but I mean administratively, we can reach out
Okay.
and ask for the enrollment history of Red Deer Catholic within Rocky.
Yeah, it's definitely, Councillor Hutchinson's comment is very valid, that there is sometimes a swap between the two divisions, and that can make a plus on one side and a minus on the other. Okay, so anything else for this draft agenda that we'd like to see added? Okay, so do we just need to accept this for information, or just a resolution to add
Resolution of what
these?
council wants added to
Okay.
the agenda, so. And field maintenance would probably fall under their JUPA agenda item, as long as we remember to bring it up and advise them that we want to talk. I'm assuming you're talking, the school maintained yards for the soccer fields and, yeah. Okay. But we can say, we can add that as a sub to the JUPA
Underneath JUPA, yeah.
conference, just to make them aware that we want to discuss it. So.
I also missed your second one that you suggested, so.
Field maintenance, Red Deer Polytech, school enrollment.
So school enrollment at Red Deer Polytech? Or just,
In comparison to other schools in the province, if our enrollment is going up or down.
okay, yeah, I got the third one, but the Red Deer Polytech's, nothing about it, just,
Just about what's happening in the wing here of the Red Deer Polytech.
okay,
if there's anything.
locally.
Just an update.
Okay.
Sorry.
So is someone prepared to make a motion to add these items to the agenda for the March 11th meeting?
I'll also
Deputy
make that
Mayor, yeah.
motion if you allow me. Let it resolve, the council add the following items to the agenda: the maintenance of the fields and JUPA, the Red Deer Polytech, and just an update on the local location. And in school enrollments today compared to 3 years ago and compared to similar sized communities within the province, as well as school locations and what will happen with Rocky, E. coli, and the future plans. E. coli, whatever it is.
Okay. So is everyone clear on that motion? Yes. Okay, any discussion on that motion? I'll call that to a vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to item 9, correspondence for information. We have 4 pieces of information in there. Is there anything anybody needs to discuss? Councillor Hutchinson.
Thank you. I just wanted to bring up, we had a policing committee meeting last night, and the attached correspondence from the governmental, or from the policing on the cost breakdown that we are being charged for, I forget what it is. Biology casework analysis. So DNA testing and things like that, that the RCMP, or this had been brought in, I think it was about 2 years ago, when they started this, and it's almost a $24,000 bill. That is another one that is an unexpected cost occurring, and that we as having a municipal agreement with the RCMP are obligated to pay. That, on top of our regular items that we pay for, like the officers that we have in town, whenever there's upgrades on, for instance, the body-worn cameras, that we as a municipality have to pay additional funding for that. I'm not saying it's not worth it, but just wanting to, have our residents be aware that, our budget of $2.3 million for the RCMP seems to be increasing on a regular basis, so just for information.
And that's, Deputy Mayor Shippold.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. So my question is, how do we know that $23,493 actually was relevant to cases in Rocky Mount House and just didn't happen to be the location of note? So if it happened in the county and they're doing the paperwork in Rocky Mount House, how do we know that then it's just the collator is not municipal versus rural? So the question I have is to Mr. Kraus is, do they give you this information in more detail so that you actually can go through and say, yeah, that happened in Rocky Mount House, that didn't happen in Rocky Mount House?
No. It's the.
Oh, fair enough, yeah.
So it's a formula, and it kind of explains it. It goes, the average number of service requests per agency is then divided by the total average request for all RCMP municipal agencies to reach a proportional percentage of costs. So it's a formula. So it's not specific to each case.
So I'm assuming this would be more like our capital, we're paying 40, I think it's 41% of the capital costs. This would kind of be in that same formula.
No, this is a different formula. This
Different
is
formula?
strictly
Okay.
provincial. So,
Sounds pretty hokey to me.
Councillor Hutchinson.
Yeah, and on the table, it does say that the total municipal costs who have the municipal agreements, as we do, was $960,000. So then they do their calculation, and we're paying 2.4% of that, and that's where they're coming up with the 23,493 figure. So it's just a figure they found.
Well, which begs to ask the question, because we have an MPSA as opposed to a PPSA, is this being loaded onto the municipal side as opposed to the provincial side, because the municipal side will pay it?
Good question.
Which is a whole other topic on RCMP, because there's not a lot of input that we have. You know, when the government negotiated the 25% pay increase that made it retroactive for 5 years previous, we had no say in that, but we got the bill for it. And here's another instance where we have no say in something, but we're getting the bill for it, and it seems to be more and more common on the policing side of things. And maybe this is something that we need to have a AB Muni's resolution saying, why are we getting surprised with all these bills from RCMP? Why can't we be included in the conversation?
Yeah, Acting Mayor, just for clarification, this is not an RCMP bill. This is from the provincial government. So it's unrelated to our contract with the RCMP. Through all the casework or biological work they do, the federal government, I think, it pays 54% of the cost. The province pays 46%. And then with that 46%, they go into a formula, and that's how we end up with 2% of that 46. So it's a provincial download. It's not RCMP download.
Still frustrating.
Yes.
Doesn't matter where it's coming from. Okay, any more discussion on the items in correspondence for information? Councillor Caprero.
If there's no further discussion, I'm happy to make a motion. Make a motion that we accept for information 9.1 through to 9.4.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Do we have any discussion on that motion? All those in favor? That is carried. Moving on to the activity, item 10, the Acting Mayor's Activity and Committee Report. I have my report here in front of you. Couple highlights. One is the Red Deer Polytechnic Impact Breakfast that Councillor Moosker and I attended. You know, you talk about going to these events and you hear the information that's given, but the real event happens around the table when you're talking to the members around the table. The Vice Chair of the Board of Governors was sitting at our table, and we had the conversation that what's going on with the wing of RDP, because we feel like we're being left out. And surprise, surprise, we had a meeting that will potentially be coming out of this, where the president of RDP will be coming out here. So that's why we go to these things, so we can have those conversations, so that we can get these meetings set up, so we can get some answers to what we have. The other one that I have is the FCSS Nonprofit Summit. So we had it was an all-day meeting where we met in the morning with nonprofits, and we discussed what could we do different, because things are changing, funding models are changing, and how can we make things different from a nonprofit point of view. So in the morning we had that discussion and basically presented a rural solution to Minister Nixon in the afternoon, because he came in and sat with us in the afternoon we had him for an hour and a half, which is a good amount of time. And one of the solutions that was brought forward was taking the old provincial building and creating a nonprofit network in there, where you could potentially have the women's shelter, We already have West Country Family Service in the basement, but the food bank could be part of that. Many nonprofit groups, so it was something that definitely had some interest, from the minister's point of view, and it's something that will be continued on and talked about more. This was just the initial discussion, the initial idea that came out. Of course, the next step will be how much does it cost, how much is it going to be, who's going to fund it. Those are always next steps, but it was very positive to see that we had a good response from it. And if anyone has any other questions on mine? If not, just looking for a motion to accept his information.
Also make that motion that we accept the deputy mayor's report as information. Sorry, the acting mayor.
Thank you. Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor? And that is carried. So moving on to the council activity reports. Councillor Auld is not here to comment on his report. So we'll move on to Councillor Caprero.
Thank you. I was sick or away for a few things this past month, so if anyone has any questions, please let me know. I do want to just speak really quickly to the town hall that we had for the disc golf location. I was glad to see the turnout that we had there. I thought it was good conversation for the most part. And I was glad because it does impact me as well, the Riverview location. So I thought it was good. I think there was good conversation. It was nice to see so many people engaged in that.
Okay, thank you. No questions for Councillor Caprero, so we'll move on to Councillor Hutchinson.
I won't speak too much. Everything's in here. I just wanted to bring forward at Rocky Learning Council is starting their missing ingredient program. Actually, yesterday would have been their first day, and I haven't heard yet on how the outcome with that was, but that was exciting program to start up that got help from FCSS to get that going, and a few of the other nonprofit groups. Rocky Senior Housing, we had our workshop around housing and housing needs, and we will be having the executive director will be coming for a delegation to kind of give some background as to where we're at and what we're looking at doing. I think she was at the county actually this morning presenting there, so that'll be coming at the next council meeting. And that's about it. Any questions?
Okay, any questions for Councillor Hutchinson? No? If not, we'll move on to Councillor Muska's report.
Thank you. I have nothing to add.
Okay, any questions for Councillor Musker? Move on to Councillor Schipholt. Any comments, any questions for Councillor Schipholt?
If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. I have nothing further to add.
Okay, thank you. So no other questions. I will make the motion to accept item 10.2, the council activity and committee reports as information. Discussion on that motion. All those in favor? And that is carried. And this will move us on to the administration reports. Mr. Kraus.
Yeah, thank you, Acting Mayor. So the reports are included in council's package for review, and if council has any questions, we'll try to answer.
Okay. Not seeing any questions at all, so just looking for a motion to accept the department reports as information. Councillor Caprero.
I will make that motion.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And yes, Councillor Musker, thank you. That is carried. Moving on to the action list for February 11th. Mr. Kraus.
Yeah, and thank you, Acting Mayor. So to go through the open items, so the first one was a resolution from closed session. So that did not come to this meeting because we were waiting for all council to be present. But we will put it on the agenda for next council meeting, even though I think we're still missing one councillor there. Second one, data center report that was presented today to council. The remuneration policy discussion was presented today to council, and we're coming back in the March GPC with a draft policy. And that is it.
Short and sweet. So do we have any questions for Mr. Kraus on the action report? Not just looking for a motion to accept that as information. Counselor Hutchinson.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Discussion? All those in favor? And that is carried. Do we have any notices of motion? Okay, seeing no notices of motion, I will take a 5-minute recess and then we will go into closed session. Okay, we're back to live session, and we're just looking for a motion to go into closed session. And Councillor Caprero.
I'll make that motion to go into closed session.
Okay, thank you for that motion. All those in favor? And we will now move into closed session. Okay, welcome back. We're back in live session, and we have two motions coming out of closed session. Deputy Mayor Shippold.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I'd like to make a motion that we accept item 14.2 on the agenda and move it to further discussion at the next council meeting.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Any discussion? All those in favor? And that is carried. We also have a second motion. Councillor Caprero.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to accept 14.3 for information.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Discussion on that particular motion? All those in favor? That is carried. And I will adjourn the meeting at 4:38. Good meeting, everyone. Thank you.